Alright, so this lesson is going to be on effective teaching. So before we get started, I just want you to take a minute and think about who your favorite teacher you ever had was. It doesn't matter if it was elementary, junior high, high school, college. Just think about who your favorite teacher was, and then picture one of the best lessons they ever taught. Think about what they were doing, what you were thinking, and what made that a good lesson and made them a good teacher. And they were probably very skillful in captivating your interest, and they also were probably good at finding engaging activities or experiences related to the subject being taught. And so we're actually going to talk about effective teaching and what those characteristics of effective teachers actually are. So we're going to analyze the major components of effective teaching and explore the role of the professional educator. Just a little joke here. Today's assignment is to come up with the best argument to help say a hypothetical teacher get out of a speeding ticket. Obviously, maybe not the most effective teacher in that case, but it's a fun little joke to start the lesson. All right, so effective teaching. There are, if you look up Rosenshine and First, did a study in 1971, I believe, on the characteristics of effective teaching. They actually came up with a list of things that have been research driven and proven to be qualities of effective teachers. And so we're actually going to talk about those components. And the number one thing that they said made an effective teacher was clarity. And so being clear with what you're teaching and explaining topics well. So their explanations are easy to grasp, the concepts are explained clearly, they use lots of illustrations and examples. So they're not just telling you about things, but they're showing you pictures and giving you different examples to help you understand and grasp what they're talking about. Their questions are clear, so you understand what they're trying to ask you. Their subject matter is organized, and the directions for tasks and projects are clear, so you know what it is you're supposed to do. And they tend to use review and closure, so they don't just give you the content and move on, but they go back over it and review it and help you close it and wrap it all back together in a neat little package. So just that ability to be clear and explain things in multiple ways is really the most important quality of effective teaching. The next most important quality is variability, and so this is just having a lot of different variability or a lot of different ways that you use instructional materials, different lessons that you teach. So you use different visuals, audio visuals, instructional methods. You want to divide major tasks into smaller tasks so that they're doing different things at different times, using different types of assessments. So you're not just going to give multiple choice tests, but you may do a short answer test, or you may do a paper, or you may do a project. So you're constantly changing different types of assessments. And then your learning activities engagements. You're going to do different things every day and not the same thing over and over and over again. Obviously, I don't do a very good job with variability with this class. I've tried to find the best way that I could to teach it and get it ready for you. So unfortunately, that has meant that the lessons are all relatively the same, but there are a few different variabilities in types of assessment. So I hope that at least I've kept that aspect of it better for you. And the reason why variability is, number one, if it's the same every time, it does get boring. But you want to vary things because it plays to different students' strengths. And so if I gave a multiple choice test every time, if that was the only type of assessment, test takers might not enjoy this class at all. Likewise, people who don't really want to have the projects and those kind of things, who'd rather have the test, would probably hate it if I had no tests at all. So that variability just kind of helps play to everybody's strengths. All right, so the next one, the third most important characteristic of effective teachers is enthusiasm. This comes in from movements, gestures, their voice, questions recall versus thinking of facts, using actual objects and specimens, and humor. And so, throwing some jokes in there, or bringing in real objects, so that the students get their hands on it, just being generally excited to be there and wanting to teach and getting excited about the content and excited about being with the students is extremely important. Obviously, it's a lot more fun to have a lesson or take a class with a teacher who acts like they enjoy being there versus somebody who you can tell uh, wishes they were somewhere else and they're just trying to get through the content and move on and they don't really put the time and effort into trying to teach those classes. So enthusiasm is very important for effective teaching because that's what really engages students in your content. All right, so task-oriented and business-like behaviors is the next most important characteristic, and that means that the teacher is concerned with learning, so they want to make sure that learning is actually taking place. They encourage creative and productive work. They manage learning environments, skillful at selecting appropriate teaching methods and materials, and they have directed learning and provide direction and guidance for learning. So they have a very structured atmosphere, and they constantly check to make sure that students are learning, and that the classroom itself is managed in a way that is conducive to student learning, and not just that it's a lot of random chaos that's taking place. So it may look chaotic. You can still have a chaotic looking classroom, but it could be organized chaos in that the specific activities that are taking place just happen to be a little bit chaotic. But so basically, what I'm trying to say is that there is some sort of structure or organization to what is happening with that class and the learning that's taking place, and that learning is checked regularly to make sure that students are indeed on task and learning what they're supposed to be learning. Student opportunity to learn criteria materials or the objectives. This is another important characteristic. So, I always have objectives at the start of my lesson. And as part of that, I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for you to actually learn those objectives because those objectives are, of course, what, in a sense, you would be testing the students on later to see if they can know that those things or do those things that are within the objectives. So you want to be able to provide an opportunity for the students to learn the objectives or the material that go along with those objectives. To provide opportunities to learn the content as prescribed by performance objectives is defined by performance objectives, and we'll even in one of our lessons for next week we'll go over how to write objectives, and that'll be one of your assignments for the class, of course. You should have relationship between objectives and the assessment, so they should go together. You shouldn't just have objectives to have objectives, and your assessment should just have questions to have questions. The questions should be developed around the objectives of the lesson. And then you want to provide an appropriate learning environment and opportunities for practice. So if there's something that they have to do or be able to do, you want to give them time to practice it before they actually have to perform, whether it's through a test or through some sort of skill assessment. All right, so some other characteristics. These are important characteristics, but aren't as highly correlated to effective teaching as the first five. So we're just going to kind of run through these. They're not, as far as what you need to know for test or exam, know those first five characteristics, and then just have a general sense of what these other characteristics are. So use of students' ideas in general and directness. You want to be able to implement students' ideas into your teaching. It makes them feel like they have a part and a say in what's going on. Constructive criticism is effective. You don't want to just tell students good job all the time, but you want to explain to them how they can get better, and so that constructive criticism is good. Use of structure and comments kind of goes along with the criticism. You want to kind of build them up. Types of questions, you want to use different types of questions. Probing questions, you want to probe and get them to think further into the content, and then of course the level of difficulty of the instruction. You want to make sure that level of difficulty is appropriate for the students that you're teaching. Alright, so that is all I have for effective teaching. Again, know what the 5 main characteristics of effective teachers: clarity, variability, enthusiasm, task-oriented business-like behaviors, and then opportunity to learn criteria, material, or the objectives. But that'll be it for effective teaching.